when I say even just the word home, all kinds of different emotions or thoughts, or you can relate different activities go on in home. Home for some of you is an apartment. Home is maybe a trailer house. Home, who knows where your home is, but it's what goes on inside the walls of that place. It's your home. Doesn't matter if you're married, doesn't matter if you're single. I mean, married people, we think automatically, married people, you got a home, we're coming home, we're making a home together. You're a single person, it's still a home. It's where you are, it's your home. And I want to make a couple of assumptions about your home here. I'm just going to make assumptions about your home. One assumption would be that you want your home to be a happy place. And if you're single and you live by yourself and it's not a happy place, yeah, well, anyway, we want our homes to be a happy place. That's an assumption I'll make about you. You want home to be a safe place, a peaceful environment where there's maybe some laughter and great things that go on inside of your home. Another assumption I'll make about your home is this, that your home isn't always happy. That maybe things haven't always been good. That maybe right now things aren't good. That maybe your home as you were growing up as a kid, it brings negative memories to you. And all of those assumptions can be made about home. And so we're going to get together with family over the next couple of holidays, and it brings all kinds of different dynamics when you're together with family. How many of you, when you get together with family, you're thinking, why is it taking so long for us to get together? I mean, this is so much fun. And then everybody's crammed into this little space, and there's only one TV set, one remote control, and you remember that's why we wait so long to get together with family. And then when you start to study your family a little bit, it's kind of exciting. Everybody walks in the door, hey, how you doing? It's all happy. But how many of you just know when you've been together with family for a little bit of time, how many know that you have some nuts on the family tree? Anybody with me on that? If not nuts, how about some fruit on that family tree, all right? And then sometimes there's skeletons in the closet of our families. And that's just the reality because we're just people. And so what do we do? What do we do to get together as a family and make family a happy place? So I want to talk to families a little bit today and then again next Sunday. Next Sunday is going to be our family service. If you think we're crowded on a Sunday morning in the second service, boy, just wait till we bring kids in here. It's a lot of fun, all kinds of energy, and we're just going to make it really, really practical. Just a side note here, listen, trust me, we're getting all the closer to moving into our new sanctuary. We will not be in this space for too many more weeks. Thank you, Jesus. Yeah. And I will only have to preach twice on Sunday instead of 3 times. But anyway, we're getting closer to that whole thing. And here's what I know, that when we get together with family, all kinds of dynamics surround the table and the environment, and the guys get together. I don't know, is it like this in your house? Right after dinner, the guys just kind of migrate over to wherever the TV is, and the women maybe migrate to where the kitchen is, where the dishes are, where the cleanup is, the whole kind of thing. In our house, you can't do that because it's all one big room. So there's no migrating, all right? So that's just the way it goes. And then people are together, and everybody, here's what I know. In your family and in my family, everybody wants to be known for something. All of us want to feel important, and we want to feel important, especially with our family, but we want to feel important everywhere. So everybody wants to be known for something because there's somebody in your family that wants to be known as the best cook in the whole family, and she's got the recipe, he's got the recipe, doesn't share the recipe. Somebody wants to be known as the highest GPA. Somebody wants to be known as the disciplinarian or the disciplined man, loyal, trustworthy. Some people want to be known as the one with good looks. How many of you want to be known in your family as the one with good looks? Raise your hand. Yeah. How many want to be known as the person in your family that's not known for anything? Raise your hand. Okay, well, that's all of us. We want to be known for something. And it doesn't matter if it's just in our family, but just in life. We want to be known for something. Now, a conflict sometimes arises in us. And here's the conflict. Because what we want to be known for and who we really are, there can be a gap between those things. There's a certain reputation that we want with family, with friends, with coworkers. That's the reputation we want, but the reality is that's not who we are. And so we recognize that. We know that about ourselves. And so there's a gap between what we want to be and who we really are. And then we find things to fill the gap. We have to tell a story. We maybe have to tell a lie. We have to create something about ourselves to fill that gap between who we are and who we want to be known for. And there's a gap. There's gap fillers that come along. And we find all kinds of things to fill the gap. And whatever we use to fill that gap ultimately can be a little deceptive. It's not who we really are. It's kind of a lie. And the world that we live in offers a lot of things for us to fill gaps in our life. The other day, Robin and I were out doing some shopping, and she was looking at some things. I'm just kind of tapping my fingers on the cart, just kind of looking at people and looking around at where we are and the whole kind of thing. And then I noticed something really great. There was some gap filler hanging on a rack right next to where I was standing. Eyelashes. Did you know you can buy eyelashes? I didn't know you could buy eyelashes. And then they had placards and all shapes and sizes and lengths of eyelashes. I just thought, this is fascinating. I'm just looking at eyelashes going, these are gap fillers, but there's gap fillers for guys too. I saw this advertised the other day. Guys, we can buy something that women used to wear 100 years ago. They called it, when women wore it, they called it a corset. When we wear it, we call it I don't know what we call it, a lie, because it's like it just sucks it all in right here, and it pushes it all up here, and you look like this, you're just awesome. You take it off at night, and you're just all out there again, Those are called gap fillers. But then there's things about our character. It's not things that we wear. It's things about our character that we use to fill gaps. And sometimes it's those things about us that can be so destructive to a home, to a family. Because at the end of the day, nobody knows you as well as your family knows you. I mean, come on, moms and dads, there's your store personalities, there's your work personality, there's your church personality, and there's your home personality. And the hope is that you are the same person in all of those places. Because if you're not, it doesn't take long for kids to identify and spot a fake. And you can identify yourself however you want to. You can label yourself however you want to, but eventually, it shows itself for who you really are. At the end of the day, who you really are can really determine the atmosphere of your home. And we're going to find out today, as we just read some really basic, simple scriptures, how what goes on inside of here, your heart, can influence the atmosphere of a home. And so if there's gap fillers inside of your heart, inside of your life, we need to deal with those so that our home can be a sweet home. Because if the heart is sweet, the home is sweet. Now, as we work on these things, if you're single, this is a little bit easier because the only person you have to really worry about is yourself. If you're a family person, this can be really a journey, but it all begins just with you. We're going to read a passage of Scripture from the book of Luke. If you want to follow along, we're going to be in the book of Luke, chapter 6. Luke, chapter 6. Matthew, Mark, and Luke. It's the third book into the New Testament part of your Bible. In Luke, chapter 6, Jesus is standing amongst hundreds, thousands of people. And he is going through a whole list of teachings. Back in the book of Matthew, in Matthew we call it the Beatitudes. Luke might refer to it as the Beatitudes. But he's just really talking about life in general and how we can conduct ourselves and respond to people and situations and that whole thing. And Jesus kind of drills down here with a little passage of Scripture towards the end of the chapter that seems to indicate there's a link between our heart and our home. There's a link between the atmosphere of our home and the atmosphere of our heart. And so Jesus starts in verse number 43, and he says something so simple, a child would understand this. He says in verse 43 that a good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. I really, Jesus, is that all the deeper you're going to get? As I read that verse, this thought came to my mind. Why would Jesus have to say that in the first place? Maybe it's because there's bad trees that try to identify as good trees. Maybe there's a gap in the life of that bad tree, and so that bad tree tries to tell everybody what kind of fruit it's producing, but it doesn't matter how hard it tries, it's still producing bad fruit. It identifies itself as an apple tree, but when somebody looks at it for any length of time, they go, that's no apple tree. He kind of works on that a little bit. He says in verse number 44, the next verse, he says, look, a tree is identified by its fruit. For instance, figs are never gathered from thorn bushes, and grapes, they're never picked from bramble bushes. You can tell what it is. You just look at the fruit. That there's a connection here. Now, as we look at this one verse right here, he says, look, if you want figs, you go to a fig tree. Thorn bushes, they just have thorns, and brambles just have brambles. And I'm not sure what a bramble is, but you can probably Google it while I'm preaching up here, all right? I just know that I don't want any brambles. I either want figs or I want grapes. And so what Jesus does in this one verse is he kind of sets the bar. He teases us a little bit by saying, you know what? Good things come from good trees, and bad things come from bad trees. And we would instinctively know here, Jesus, I don't think he's talking about trees. I think he's talking about something else. He must be talking about people. And if he's talking about people, I want to be a fig tree or a grape tree. I don't want to be a bramble bush. I don't want to be a thorn bush. I want to be one of those good trees. So it's obvious Jesus isn't talking about trees. He's talking about people. And why would Jesus mention this? I mean, why is there this confusion? I think there's this confusion because sometimes people identify as one thing. They say one thing, but their lives are producing something else. We could just say that's kind of a hypocrisy. In other words, what people say about themselves isn't what people see when they look at that person. And at home, this happens a lot at home. Come on, parents, we do this. We produce thorns when we don't even intend to produce thorns. We're a parent. We're supposed to set the bar. We're supposed to be the example. Moms and dads, come on. We do this. And we'll say things to our children like, I love you. I'm so glad. And you're my favorite. How many were you were the favorite? Come on. Yep, thank you. You're going to come from a family of 11, but you know you're the favorite, and everybody was raising their hand. You're the favorite. I love you so much. And then in the next breath, probably at the grocery store, you're driving me crazy. Get down, get off, get back, stop, get. I wish you were never born. Get out of here. I hate you. You're an idiot. Why can't you do anything right? And now our kids go to our room and go, I thought Mom was an apple tree, but I'm pretty sure she's a thorn bush today. And then we try to tell our children things like, share, come on, share, because you know what it is, Christmas time, toys come out. Isn't this just great? If you want to see the sin nature alive and well, put one child in a room with two children in a room with one toy, two children. You'll see the sin nature. And then we say this, come on, parents, come on. We're trying to teach good principles. Come on, share. We tell our children to share, but then as adults, life is a little more sophisticated, complicated. We have toys too, but our toys cost more. And we just can't share with just anybody because, well, you know, and you'll understand one day when you're an adult. And then we tell our children something like, well, don't you lie to me. Don't you lie to me. And we catch our child in a lie. We hear them tell a lie. We know they're telling a lie. We catch them telling a lie. But you know what? When you're older, when you're an adult, life gets a little more sophisticated, a little more complicated. And there are just some things that children don't understand. And our children catch us in a lie, and they question us. They raise an eyebrow. They might even ask us about it later. And we say, well, you know, there are times in life, well, you know, it's not really a lie. It's just, we call them white lies. Your children are not done to go, well, it's a lie. We tell our children, don't you steal. It's wrong to steal. Maybe we catch a child stealing and we hold them accountable for it and we take them back to the grocery store, to the clerk or whatever, and we make them confront this issue. And we want to teach them the great principles that they're not supposed to steal. But then tax season comes along. You know, life is more complicated and sophisticated, and it's different when you're an adult. We tell our children, don't you drink. You stay away from alcohol because alcohol will ruin your life. You're supposed to stay away from it and yada, yada, yada. And we have our lecture and our whole spiel about it. But you know what? Your kids know where you keep your stash, and they smell your breath, and they know what you're doing on Friday night when you got a sitter. We do these things without even really realizing it. We tell them they're not supposed to bully. You're supposed to treat people nicely. But then somebody in church does us wrong. And they hear the conversation. They heard how we were talking to somebody else about that person. We're identifying as an apple tree or an orange tree or a fig tree or a grapevine. It doesn't matter. But our children are going, well, that's not what I see. And so Jesus said, you know what? Sometimes you have to know the tree. And the only way to know the tree is by the fruit. And fruit never tells a lie about the tree. You can always identify the tree from the fruit. So, all right, we've identified the problem, and I've just made most of you parents feel really guilty because your kids are looking at you going, Pastor's talking about you, Mom and Dad. Yeah, right? So how do we get good fruit from the tree? Jesus answers the question. He says in the next verse, he said, look, a good person produces good things from the treasury of a good heart. And an evil person, they produce evil things from the treasury of an evil heart. And then if you're not really sure about the fruit, well, the mouth, what you say flows from what's inside your heart. The byproduct of whatever is inside the heart eventually is produced in the fruit of our words. And so Jesus is saying here that if there's a fruit production problem in your home, that your home is this place of discord and dissension and anger and anxiety and violence, and the list goes on and on and on. He says, you can't look at your children, you can't look at the offspring, you have to go to the soil where the seed is growing in your own heart. This is a heart issue, that if the heart is sweet, the home is sweet. We seldom really want to look at the soil of our own heart. We just honestly would like this to be somebody else's problem and not our own. And then as if out of nowhere, Jesus kind of catches us off guard with the next statement. It's like there's a heart issue that's going on here. And Jesus doesn't just leave us hanging with why we have a heart issue. He says, I'll tell you why you have a heart issue. Look at the next verse. Why do you keep calling me Lord, Lord, and you don't do what I say? In other words, there's a gap between what you say and how you live. You're calling me Lord. You're saying that you're a Christian. You're saying that you're a Christ follower. You're saying that you agree with my principles and the precepts of my word, but your life says something completely different, and your children can be the first one to identify the fruit. Your heart is just manifesting what's going on inside of your life. And obviously there's a gap, and it comes out when we open our mouth. What we might say we're an apple tree, but boy, anybody gets around us, they're kind of like a prickly tree, you know? We say one thing, but our lives are producing something altogether different, and it's because there's something inside of our heart. Can we just be honest for a little bit? There's people that have planted all kinds of seeds in the soil of our heart through the years of our life. One of the reasons there's such discord and dissension and disunity in homes is because somebody planted that in our heart maybe when we were kids. And now we're married, starting our own family, and that's just what we know, and that's just what we do. You're not sure what kind of fruit you're producing, Mom and Dad, just ask your children. They'll tell you. Children are given with a God-given gift called honesty. They'll tell you what kind of fruit you're producing. If you want to know how people look at you, I just challenge you, sit down at the break room table tomorrow and just ask people, what do people say about me? They'll tell you what kind of fruit you're producing. If you're not sure about that, when you sit down with family this Thursday and you're all gorged on that big turkey and you're all done, just sit back in the chair and say, I've got a question for all of you. Yeah, go ahead. What do you guys think about me? You want to make for an awkward situation, right? They'll tell you what kind of fruit you're producing. If there's turmoil all around you, if there's dissension all around you. I mean, if you have problems with Bob and you've got problems with Dennis and you've got problems with David, maybe the problem isn't with Bob, Dennis, and David. Maybe the problem is with you. Because there's a fruit production problem that's there. And so Jesus, now, he's not done. How many feel bad about yourself yet? We're not done. Okay, we'll keep working on this, all right. And then Jesus, he's not done with the story, though, because he wants us to imagine how life could be different if we would change our heart. He says, I want you just to imagine for a moment, he's going to take us into a little story now, and he wants us to imagine if we changed this, how it would change everything else. And so he tells this little story. He gets into it in verse 47. He says, I'm going to show you what it would be like. What it would be like. In other words, I want to reveal to you a future event if people would come to me and listen to me and then follow me. You remember English class? Some of you remember English class. Some of you remember Susie, who sat in row 3 in English class, but you don't remember English class. But in English class, we learned about adjectives and nouns and verbs, and verbs are those action words. And in this one verse, Jesus kind of presents to us 3 verbs. If you will first come to me, move towards me. I've already moved towards you, now move towards me. And then not just moving towards me, but then just listen to me. Listen to me. Come on. You all had a parent come, listen to me. And they squeezed you by the cheeks. Listen to me. I mean, Jesus just said, listen to me. And then follow me. And isn't that what you want as a parent? If you're a parent today, you want your children to come to you, to listen to you, and to follow you. Do you know why? Because you have a whole different vista, a whole different panorama on life. You've made the mistakes, you've done the dumb things, you've made some errors in your life, and you want so badly for your children to avoid the same things. And you freak out. You freak out when your kids come home and something got tattooed, pierced, poked, and they're wearing whatever the case is, and you're just freaked out all over. Listen, parents, if you're freaked out about what they wear, your kids are freaked out about what you wear. Really? Socks and sandals? No, I don't think so. Plaid and stripes. But listen, you have a whole different panorama on life. You're looking at life differently, and you want time with them. Isn't it what frustrates you as a parent when your kids don't listen to me? Jesus said, just listen to me. Because if you would just listen to me and follow me, here's what would happen. It would change your heart. And here's the results. He tells this little story. It would be like somebody building a house. And when they're building the house, they dig really deep and they lay a foundation on solid rock. Robin and I watched a news magazine the other night. There's a big, tall building in San Francisco. And they built on not rock. Building is tipping over. Kind of an embarrassment to the developers. And you know, if you want to build a building on a solid foundation, it takes a little extra work. It's difficult. It's laborious. But when you do this, the floodwaters, well, they're going to rise and they're going to break against the house, and it's going to stand firm because it's well built. You got to dig down to the bedrock. It takes so much time to do that. It's not easy. There's no shortcuts. This is the stuff that goes on behind the scenes of your life that nobody really even notices. Come on. Anybody else here old like Robin and me? And sometimes you just drive around and look at houses in Williston. Anybody else do that? I didn't think so. Oh, thank you so much for affirming us. And nobody drives around and looks at houses and goes, baby, would you just look? I bet you, I would just love to see the basement on that house. Man, because you can see just a couple of feet of it sticking out of there. What a beautiful foundation that has. You know, the foundation it's not complicated. I mean, a foundation, I'm not a builder, but I've seen foundations. Foundation is a concrete box down in the ground. It's not complicated, but it takes great effort to make the foundation. And you know as well as I do, look at this and take a rocket scientist to know if the foundation's not good, it really doesn't matter how gorgeous the house is on top. But nobody admires the foundation. And foundations in families are built when there's some spiritual principles that are there, when there's integrity there, when there's honesty there, when there's Jesus there. You know, it's built and storms come. I want you to imagine this. Rocks were pretty commonplace back in Jesus' day. All over Palestine, rocks everywhere. Still rocks there today. And Jesus said, if you want a house that's going to stand the test of the storms, you've got to dig down several feet through the sandy soil. And there's bedrock underneath there. Yeah, and you start stacking the rock and you build this foundation, and then you start building the house. And then torrential rains come. Maybe even the river begins to rise, and it floods your home, and it washes away all of that sand. But even when all of that sand is washed away, there's still some rocks that nobody saw before, but they're still there, and your house stands tall. You might need a ladder to get in the front door, but the house is still standing. And I'm telling you, Mom and Dad, your house is being beaten by the storms of life now. Culture comes through social media. Culture comes through your TV set. Culture comes through the friends that your kids go to school with. And they walk through the doors of the home, and they bring that storm with them. There's things that go on in our news and in our media and in governments and in governors that beat against the foundation of a home. There's tragedies, there's sickness, there's divorce, there's discouragement. All kinds of things beat against the house. But if that house has a great foundation, a mom and dad who are immovable in their relationship with Jesus Christ. Look, Mom and Dad, if you're secure in your relationship with Jesus Christ, your kids will weather a lot of storms. They'll weather a lot of storms. Mom and Dad, even if you're single today, even if you're married and don't have children yet, it's never, ever too late to start building that foundation. Grandmas and grandpas, you can build that foundation. If you're single today, not married, want to get married, start building the foundation. And the way you build the foundation is by building this relationship with Jesus Christ. It's where it starts. It's just the basics. It's just the basics. The storms are going to come and beat against that place, but they're going to stand because there's integrity in that foundation. And you know how you build integrity into a foundation? There's honesty. It's transparency. It's trust. And when you have those things, you have integrity in the foundation. And when the storms come, that house will not be divided. It will not fall. And isn't that the kind of home you want to live in? Isn't that the kind of home you want to have? I think all of us do. And then Jesus kind of goes on the other side of the whole thing. He said in verse 49, he kind of ends his story. He says, but look, anybody who hears, they hear and then they don't obey. It's not that they didn't have the information. They had all the information before them. They knew exactly what they were supposed to do. I mean, they had the blueprints right there. It showed them how to build the foundation, but they didn't want to do that. I don't care about the foundation. I just want to have the house. So they take the shortcut and they build on top of the sandy soil. And yep, they can build it quickly and people can see it and they see the facade, but they don't have any foundation below them. He said, if you hear but don't obey, well, it's like a person who builds a house right on the ground. They built it right on it's on sandy soil. I mean, it's on sandy soil, but when the floodwaters sweep down against that house, it's going to collapse into a heap of ruins. You've seen that house. You're living that house. You grew up in that house. You wish you would never have to witness that house. And you hate that kind of a house, but you never knew how not to have it. And you're fighting right now to keep that from happening to your house. It's never too late to start working on that foundation. I'm telling you, Mom, Dad, you might have a fight and a battle on your hands. We're going to talk about some of this stuff very practically about devotions in the home and leading your children next week when we get together. We're going to talk really practically about that. Husbands in here, let me just talk to husbands for a moment. I know you've heard me say this before. You will never look so hot to your wife as you are when you start leading them spiritually. Your wife will be like, humana. My man is just amazing. That's building the foundation. That's just building the foundation. When you kneel down next to the bed with your kids at night, and they offload the stuff of the day and all the problems they're having with their friends and all this stuff, and you have a word of prayer with them and read some scripture to them. When they know that you're solid, they'll be okay. And all of that is an outflow of the heart. If the heart is sweet, the home is sweet. And I want you to understand this again. You say, what are we supposed to do? Look, 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 look. This is not complicated, but it is difficult. It is difficult because all this is doing is just saying, Jesus, I'll follow you. I'll follow you. That's all Jesus is asking us to do in this story. To make our home a sweet home is to start to come to Him, to listen to Him, and to follow Him. And let me just tell you, that is the most difficult challenge and journey any of us in this room will take on in life. It is not easy to be a Christian, but boy, is it rewarding to be a Christian. And it all begins by what we put inside of our heart. If Jesus is the Lord of your heart, He'll be the Lord of your home. If He's the Lord of your heart, He makes a sweet heart. And if there's a sweet heart, there's a sweet home.